everyone, it's that time of year again to guess what the BreyerFest surprise model is going to be. In this video, we're going to be guessing what mold the Samba Surprise BreyerFest 2016 Surprise Horse, also known as the Gambler's Choice model, is going to be. Now, this is really just a guess and speculation video. I do not actually know what the surprise horse is going to be. I do not work for Breyer or anything like that, so I do not actually know. This is purely educated guesses based on what Breyer has done in previous years with BreyerFest and their other surprise models. Some of you may know that I first did this video last year and I actually managed to get it right, and I still can't believe it. I guessed that the mold Lonesome Glory was going to be the mold for the BreyerFest 2015 surprise horse. And it was, and if you don't believe me, here's a quick flashback to that video. If I have to choose one mold to guess, I would guess the Lonesome Glory mold. I think it is extremely possible that the Lonesome Glory mold is going to be the surprise model. Yeah, I still can't believe I actually ended up getting that right, and I don't know if I'm going to get it right this year. That'd be cool if I did. That'd be an awesome 2-year in a row correct surprise model guess thing. But I am not quite as confident this year because there are quite a few molds that I think could be the BreyerFest surprise model. So far, based on the previous BreyerFest surprise models, we know already that the mold is probably going to be a traditional adult horse. This means there won't be any classic stablemates, mini winnies, paddock pals, etc. scales, and it'll also just be one horse. It'll probably not be a set of like a mare and foal, especially because this year there is already a mare and foal used. So we're going to be basing all of our speculations just on that idea that it is going to be an adult traditional scale horse. Before we can even guess what the surprise horse is going to be, we first have to know what molds can't the surprise model be. So let's go through the molds that the BreyerFest 2016 surprise horse is probably not going to be. First off are pretty obvious ones. It's not going to be a mold that's already been a surprise horse in previous years, which means it's not going to be the quarter horse mold which was used in 2009, the Ethereal mold which was used in 2011, the Flash mold that was used in 2012, the Roxy mold that was used in 2013, the Nakota mold that was used in 2014, and lastly the Lonesome Glory mold that was used in 2015. So right off the bat we know these are molds that are really likely not to be the surprise horse, because I don't think Breyer is ever going to do the surprise horse on a mold that's already been done before, especially considering how often they're doing new molds now. Just this year there are like 4 new molds out, so I don't think Breyer is going to ever be repeating a mold as the BreyerFest surprise horse. Another pretty obvious one is that the surprise horse is not going to be a mold that's already being used in this year's BreyerFest for special runs, celebration horses, raffle models, etc. Of course, it's not going to be the new sculpture of Imperator das August JM, however you pronounce that. It's not going to be that mold, which is a celebration horse. It's not going to be in the mold of the early bird raffle model, which is Smarty Jones. And it's not going to be in the raffle models of Allegro and Geronimo. It will also probably not be the Diorama Contest Prize mold, which is Buckshot. And it won't be in any of the molds that are being used as special runs this year, which means Silver, the Andalusian Mare and Foal, Bobby Joe, Forever Siege, Wyatt, and It's Just a Dream will not be used. The store specials that are already molded are the Gypsy Vanner and Estado, which means those are also excluded. I also think that it's safe to say that the molds that are being used as the Open Show Grand Prize models are also not going to be the surprise horse molds, which means Cigar and Morgan Zales will also be excluded. So another pattern that I've noticed is that Breyer doesn't use a mold that was a special run last year as the surprise horse or a special run in general, which means, for example, any molds that were used as special runs in 2014 are not going to be molds that were used on the special run horses for 2015. And by using that same logic and pattern, that means that these following molds are ones that the surprise horse cannot be, because all these molds were used as last year's BreyerFest 2015 special runs. And all the molds that these special runs are Tortalis, the Marwari mold, Ashquar mold, the Connemara mold, the Wixom mold, and the Huckleberry Bay mold. I think it's also fair to assume that the mold that was used as last year's celebration horse is also not going to be the surprise horse model, which means the mold Roy the Belgian will also not be used. Other molds that we can disqualify is very unlikely to be used are the molds that were used for store specials. This includes the strapless mold and the Solano mold. So now we have eliminated all the molds that we're really sure the surprise model is not going to be. But that still leaves a lot of molds left. But the thing is, a lot of these molds are also older molds, which is another pattern I've noticed. Aside from the first Gambler's Choice model, which was the quarter horse stallion, all the other ones have been used on newer molds that were made at least during the 2000s. So I think it's also safe to assume that many of the older molds are not going to be used as the BreyerFest surprise horse. And I believe this because while there are many collectors, including myself, that love the older molds, Breyer also knows there's also a lot of people that are not very fond of them, and of course they want people to buy lots of the surprise horses. So they're going to put it on a mold that they think is going to be popular. Now that we have those older molds eliminated as well, there are still quite a few molds that are very possible for this year's surprise horse. But I have decided to highlight in green which ones I think are going to be the most likely ones. The reasons why I think these ones are going to be most likely the surprise horses are based on a few different things. First of all is the theme of BreyerFest, which is Brazil, and Samba Surprise, which samba is actually a kind of Spanish dance. So I'm kind of assuming that the mold is going to have to in some way relate to either dancing, Brazil, like a Spanish breed. It's going to have to relate to something like that. So this is why I do not really thoughtfully consider molds like the American Saddlebred, because he's neither dancing nor a Spanish breed, so he does not seem as likely. Now you may say that last year's surprise horse was not super French because it was the Lonesome Glory mold, but it was technically a warm blood, and France has been known for having warm bloods, so it does still kind of fit into that category, maybe a little loosely, but it still does. Then all the other previous years, though, have kind of fit into their theme. The British theme had a pony, the Denim and Diamonds had a stock horse. So I think it's kind of safe to assume that this model is going to, in some way, fit with the Carnival theme that BreyerFest has this year. So now I'll be going over all the specific molds that I think it could be and why. First up on here, we can see our first section of molds, and the only one out of all of these that I have determined I think would be a very likely possibility to be the surprise horse is the Andalusian or Andalusian Stallion mold, sculpted by Kathleen Moody. So the reasons why I think this mold is a big possibility are pretty obvious. He is an Andalusian, which is a Spanish breed. He's not necessarily dancing, but he is in a dynamic pose with his mane and tail flowing back. It does just seem like this mold could be a very big possibility, especially considering it's kind of semi-popular. It's not like extremely over-popular, I'd say, at least from what I've seen, but it's generally a very overall liked mold. It's not one that I hear a lot of people saying they hate. So those are the reasons why I think the Andalusian could be a very big possibility as being the mold that the Samba Surprise horse is going to be on. And another reason why I think the Andalusian is a big possibility is the fact that they haven't been using this mold too much as like a regular run. The last time I'd say they really used it was BreyerFest 2014 as a special run, but this guy could certainly make a comeback as a BreyerFest 2016 surprise horse. Now on this next page of models, you can see I don't have anyone actually highlighted in green. Why is that? Well, because I don't see any that I think are really going to fit the theme. The only one that I could say is maybe is possible technically, but I just don't think it's very likely, is Othello, or the Winter Song mold, whatever you want to call it. This is a very popular mold, at least from what I've seen, but I don't think this is going to be a surprise horse simply because it is a draft, and obviously drafts are not really as much into the Spanish kind of breeding as much. There are some like Spanish Normans and things like that, but I just don't see this as being the surprise horse. And I'm also not sure if Breyer is ever really going to do a surprise horse on a model that's already been a treasure hunt horse. I'm not sure if that's going to be true or not. They can of course do whatever they feel like is best, but I just don't really feel like they're going to do a surprise horse on a model that's already had a treasure hunt thing, which means it's already had 4 different variations and stuff. So I just don't really see that as being super likely. Plus the Othello mold has just been kind of used quite a bit recently. Now onto the next page, there are 2 horses that I have highlighted in green here. First off is Bluegrass Bandit, and she's another one I think is super likely. She's a very liked mold. She's a recent mold. She hasn't been used as a regular run very much, and the last time she was used as Elvis Presley's bear in 2013. She has been used semi-recently as BreyerFest store specials in 2013 and 2014, but I think the fact that she's a very popular mold makes her a very likely candidate for being the surprise horse this year. And even better is she does sort of match the theme. I know she's a Tennessee walking horse, but she does have a little samba dance going on with her little gait there. She could very well be a nice fit for the Samba Surprise horse. And then the other horse that I have highlighted in green here is the Peruvian Paso. This mold is very likely because he just really fits it in general. I mean, he's a Peruvian Paso, obviously very Spanish Brazil kind of thing going on, and he's dancing as well. He's got his little special gait going on there, with his leg up and everything. So this is a very possible mold, but the one thing is that I do not find this as a very popular mold. It's not generally a hated mold, but yet it's not one that I really see people really loving that much. There's really nothing wrong with this mold. It's a very nice mold. I like it personally too, but I just kind of don't entirely feel like this would be the surprise model. Just because I think Breyer is going to want to put it on a mold that everybody's going to be really wanting, or most people are really going to be wanting. And I don't see a lot of people looking at this mold and going, oh yes, I'm going to have it, no matter what color it's in. I feel like a lot of people are going to not be as excited about it. Of course, Breyer wants people to be excited about the surprise horse, and this one I think people are not going to be as excited about. I mean, like for myself, I would be kind of okay with this being the surprise horse, but I kind of don't see Breyer wanting to put it on this mold just because of its popularity. In all the other ways, it is still very possible. It has been used as a regular run recently, which makes me a little iffy on it, but it hasn't been used very often as a regular run either, at least recently, so it is still a very much possibility. And now for again 2 more molds here. The Cleveland Bay and the Rain mold, although I actually really don't think either of these are very likely. Cleveland Bay because, well, he can kind of fit into Spanish in some ways, like, again, like kind of like the Spanish Norman kind of deal. But again, draft horses aren't just very something you look at and immediately think of a Spanish horse. So that's why I'm not really sure if they would put the Samba Surprise on the Cleveland Bay mold. It isn't a dynamic pose, and it is a popular mold, but I just kind of, I don't know. I don't really see it as it being the surprise horse, but it is still possible. The Rain mold is one that I think is more possible, actually, than the Cleveland Bay, just because she is kind of a Spanish mold. She is doing a little samba, but the only reason I'm kind of not sure about her is the fact that she is based off of Rain, the cartoon horse. And so she's not very realistic, and because of that, a lot of people don't really like this mold quite as much if they are looking for realism. Now, I know this mold hasn't been used hardly at all. It's only been used last as Linus, the very limited show special horse thing. So the fact she hasn't been used, and like her pose and everything, that fits the theme and her breed technically. But the fact that she's also just not a realistic horse, I don't know if Breyer would want to put that kind of risk on making the surprise horse on a mold that is meant technically to be on a cartoon mare. So that's why I'm not really confident in this being the Samba Surprise horse either, but again, it's still technically possible. Now on the next page we have 2 more models highlighted in green here. First is Esprit, which I think is how you say it. I know, it's been out for 6 years. I can't do math right now. It's been out for like 6 years, and I'm still not entirely sure if that is the correct way to say it. But yes, Esprit is a possibility. Why? Because he is Spanish breed again, and he has his fancy little dynamic pose going on. He just seems like he could be a Samba Surprise. But the one but part is, I know he has a lot of mixed feelings about this mold. Either people love him or hate him generally. Because of that, I kind of think Breyer would be more hesitant to put this as the surprise horse, because I can see maybe half the Breyer collectors really wanting him, the other half not wanting him at all. So I am a little iffy as if Breyer would take that risk and put this mold as the surprise horse. This model hasn't been used too recently as a regular run though, so it is possible, and some of the other models in this mold previously have done well. So it is very much a possibility still, though. I'm just not sure if Breyer really knows how many people like this mold and how many people don't, but I think it is still very much a possibility. You can also see here I went ahead and highlighted Ruffian in green, although I'm not really confident in her being the Samba Surprise. You know, a lot of people want her to be because they love the Ruffian mold. I think she's wonderful too. I like this mold as well. But I kinda don't think she's gonna be the surprise source. She could be because of her popularity and because she is running, although she's not really dancing, she's running. She's full out running, she's not dancing, but I don't know if that would still maybe count in Breyer's eyes. But she just doesn't seem like a Samba Surprise to me. Other than her dynamic pose, she's not really fitting into the Carnival Brazil theme. And the other thing is that she is being used as the American Pharaoh mold, which is a pretty big deal considering American Pharaoh's the Triple Crown winner and so long and stuff. So I kind of feel like Breyer's not going to want to put the surprise model on the Ruffian mold. And we also recently found out that the Halloween horse this year is also on the Ruffian mold, which is another reason why I don't think it is going to be very likely to be used. So I think it is kind of fair to say that this model is not very likely. It is possible, but I just don't think it is very likely compared to the other ones. Now on this page is another one that I'm not really confident in either. This is the show jumping Warmblood. The reason why I am not so confident in him is because, again, he just kind of doesn't quite fit the theme. He is a newer mold, he is rather popular, I'd say, but he does not really fit being a Spanish horse. He's in a dynamic pose, but he's not really, like, dancing. So he's just kind of, like, there just because it is possible. I just think it would be kind of weird if Breyer did it and did the Samba Surprise in this mold because it just doesn't really fit. But nonetheless, I mean, I'd be really excited if this was the mold just because I do like this mold as many other people do. But I just don't think it's very likely, just based on its breed and pose and so on. Next up is a horse that I think people have really not thought of, which is Giselle. And I know some people might say, well, Giselle's a Warmblood, so wouldn't you say she doesn't fit the theme either? Yes and no, because she does have enough of a physique that she could kind of be like an Andalusian mare. At least that's what I see from her. She's not like, of course, like the spitting image of a Andalusian mare, but she is kind of Andalusian mare-ish. And she does have kind of a dance. She's really just walking, but it's kind of not a bad pose for the Samba Surprise. And the other fact is the fact that she has not been used as a regular run since Gigi Valentine, which feels like forever ago since they started Gigi Valentine. And then she's been used for some special runs like a web special and some like other stuff, but really not really anything very recent. So she hasn't been used in a long time, this mold has, so I think it is very likely that she could be the surprise horse because she does fit in with a lot of stuff. And she's also a generally liked mold. I don't know if she's necessarily super popular from what I've seen, mostly because she has not been used maybe as a regular run very much. But generally, she is a generally liked mold. Like, I haven't seen anyone hardly ever say they hate this mold. So I think she could be a very possibility. You may notice I did not include Spirit as the Samba Surprise, and that's just because, again, I didn't think Rain was very likely. But Rain is more likely than him because she is in a dynamic pose. And I am also wondering if the Samba Surprise is going to be a mare, considering Samba does kind of sound mare-ish, or the dance sounds like it would be a mare maybe. And the other thing is the fact that there have been so many mares used this year for BreyerFest special runs. Maybe it's the BreyerFest of special run mares, I don't know, but a lot of them have been used. So I wonder if Breyer is going to continue that theme onto the Samba Surprise. We don't know for sure. I mean, really, it's a toss-up. It could be either. But I think it is just interesting if they do use a mare as the surprise horse this year. Now this page there won't be a whole lot to talk about because there are no horses highlighted in green. And the reason for this is because just none of them I think are very likely. Now the reason why the Icelandic I don't think is likely is because it is a smaller model. I think Breyer is going to be mostly sticking to the larger traditional scale horses, especially if they charge $85 again. And kind of, I think a lot of people would feel ripped off if they got a smaller horse like the Icelandic. Even though it is kind of doing a little dance with its little tolt gait pose, it just doesn't really fit the theme. Like I said, it's smaller, so I don't think it's going to be that one. The reason why not Secession, She's actually really pretty, but she just does not fit Samba at all. Like, she just doesn't have the dancey feeling at all. She just seems like a sweet mare, but she does not feel the Samba Brazil feel to me at all. So that's why I also did not include her as a possibility. And now we are on to the second to last page. And as you can see here, I have 2 horses highlighted in green. I will say first, though, before I talk about them, Cannabis Count is one I kind of considered as well, because I don't know why, but he always looks kind of Spanishy to me. I know he's a Morgan, but he seems like he could kind of fit that. But again, he doesn't fit the Samba, like, dancey feel, really. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I can really conclude him as a possibility or not. But I have included the trotting Arabian mare, which I'm sure most people know as the Weather Girl. I think Weather Girl is a possibility as well because she's trotting. She may be an Arabian. I know that's the one part that doesn't fit the Brazil theme at all, but she's a popular mold is the one thing, so I know Breyer would be down to bring out a popular mold like her. And the fact that she has been reintroduced this year since being not introduced since 2011. But she has been used as a regular run just recently, which makes me feel a little iffy on that. And again, I just don't know if they're going to use a model that was previously a treasure hunt, especially so soon, as a surprise horse. Then second up here we have the Carrick mold, which is also called the Walking Thoroughbred apparently. This mold is also a possibility because, well, he's walking. I don't know if that's really a dynamic, is like really a dancey look in his pose. But he could be. He's also iffy on the look, though. He does not look as very Spanishy as compared to, like, Giselle did. Giselle looks really Spanish to me, like being an Andalusian or something. This guy does not. He is very warm-bloody, stock horsey, mixy. Like, he's kind of weird, actually. I could see them possibly using him, but I just kind of don't feel it for this model. Like, he'd be very good representation of being the Samba Surprise. I don't know. It could be just me, but I don't see him as being it for some reason. I also don't see the Warmblood Stallion or Atticus. He's standing. He's a Warmblood. He just doesn't fit it at all. And then now on to the last page. I actually don't have anyone highlighted. And, well, Legendaro. I love this mold. This guy, the Legendaro the Third, I'm so sorry, I'm butchering his name right now. He is very Spanishy, but I know a lot of people don't like his mold. I'd personally really love it if he was the surprise horse, because I really love this mold. But just too unpopular, I think, for the surprise horse. And we also have Lagoa down here, the Loping Quarter Horse. Again, he's kind of an iffy, actually. Maybe possible, but I'm kind of not feeling it for him. He has been used as a regular run and the recent Tahula. I just don't really think this model is going to be it, personally. He's kind of a possibility, though. I wouldn't maybe rule him out completely, but I just don't really see him as being the Samba Surprise horse. Alright, now let's narrow down these possibilities even more. Here are the top 6 molds that I think could be the surprise horse. We have Esprit, Giselle, the Andalusian Stallion, Bluegrass Bandit, Weather Girl, and the Peruvian Paso. So I think all of these are definitely some of my top possibilities as being the surprise horse based on their popularity or their ability to fit in with the theme. After some thought, I believe that the surprise horse is probably going to be a mare, but this doesn't really rule out any models because Breyer can always turn any of these models into a mare, especially since they just turned the silver model that is the special run this year into a mare as well, which is completely new because they have not done a mare on that mold before, at least none that I know of. So it's very well safe to say that they could do the same with one of these stallion molds if they wanted to have the Samba Surprise horse be a mare and turn any one of these 3 stallions into a mare. Even though I think all of these are top possibilities, I know people are probably wondering what is my number 1 guess for this year. So I'm going to narrow down this list even more and bring it down to what I personally think are going to be the top 3. But really, any of these 6 I think are very, very likely. But I'm just going to put down the top 3 that I really think will be the ones just based on everything I've seen from Breyer so far. So here are my top 3 guesses, and as you can see, that is Giselle, Bluegrass Bandit, and the Andalusian Stallion. Why did I pick these as the top 3? Because I think they fit into the theme very well of Samba being the dance and then just Brazil in general. And also because of their popularity and the fact that they have not been used very much recently. So all of these three factors really came into play for me trying to decide what was my top three. Now I know you're probably still wondering, well, what's your number one mold? And I will go through that now. So for being my third guess, I'd actually give it to the Andalusian Stallion. Why, you may ask? Well, because one is he seems like a pretty obvious mold in general from the Samba Surprise. And I wonder if Breyer wants to make sure that people are, well, surprised by which mold is done. So that's why I've kind of made the Andalusian Stallion my third top guess, because I think that Breyer is going to try and use a mold that people don't expect, which is kind of what happened last year, because a lot of people were expecting a draft mold, but it ended up being the Lonesome Glory Warmblood mold. So I'm wondering if Breyer is going to do the same thing this year, which means that the Andalusian Stallion is maybe a little too obvious. So now that leaves Giselle and Bluegrass Bandit, and I have a hard time picking between these two actually. I think they're both just super likely. Bluegrass Bandit mostly because of her huge popularity, and then Giselle mostly because she has not been used in a long time, and she's just really unexpected. I haven't heard anyone guess her as the surprise source yet. Not meaning that someone out there hasn't, but from what I've heard, I've never heard anyone say, oh, I think it could be on the Giselle mold. No one thinks of that, and so I think maybe Breyer thought of that and realized, hey, no one's going to think about that. So that's why I think she is very possible as well. This is super duper hard to try and choose just one horse to call my top guess, but I'm going to have to go ahead and give it to Bluegrass Bandit. Yes, she's the one I'm going to go ahead and say is my top pick for the Samba Surprise horse. The reasons why I think this, well, she definitely fits into the theme of Samba, the dance, because she is actually performing a gait and has her leg lifted up and everything. She just looks like she could be dancing, which totally fits with the theme. She may not have as much of a Brazil look to her, like I mentioned, but this gait I think really fits the theme most of all. And of course, as I've been mentioning, her popularity, she is a generally popular mold. Even though Breyer has done 2 store specials on her recently, I do not think that is going to completely exclude her because of the fact that she hasn't been used as like a regular run in quite a while. But also mentioning the fact that she has been used recently, I have come across a possible new pattern. Now this one can maybe just be considered a coincidence, but in 2014, Breyer had one of their special events called the Big Easy Bash. And in this event, they have special runs that are very limited and rather expensive in some ways. But one of the special runs they had was a Lonesome Glory, which was called Nola. And then the following year, we had the surprise horse being on the Lonesome Glory mold. Coincidence? Very well possible. I mean, it could very well be a coincidence. But what if this is some strange new pattern we have stumbled across? Well, then what models are at the last year's special event? Well, last year's event was Sweet Home Chicago Celebration, and they had the same thing. They had several special runs that were very limited and a little bit higher priced. And among these horses were horses like Destado, the Arabian Mare, and then some older molds like the Appaloosa Performance Horse and the Family Arabian Mare and Foal. But they also had a Bluegrass Bandit. That's right, all the Raz, a bay on the Bluegrass Bandit mold. Is it possible that this means that she's the surprise horse? Could be, could be not. Again, the previous year could have very well been a coincidence, considering how many different special runs they've been using and such. But what is also interesting is the fact that Destado was also used as a store special this year, and that the Arabian Mare was also used as a special run. Interesting, interesting. Well, that pretty much concludes then my top picks for the special run horse. And to put on record, Bluegrass Bandit is my top pick for this year. Although there are many other molds that I think are very likely, I'm going to go ahead and say she is my top pick. Now before we end this video, I want to also briefly go over what colors the surprise horse is probably going to be. Likely the surprise horse is going to come in 4 color variations. Usually there is one solid colored horse, one with a pinto pattern, one with an Appaloosa pattern, and then a 4th one which could be any of those 3 different patterns, but it is likely going to be another pinto. And then usually there's a glossy variation of each of those colors. So we can likely guess that there will be a total of 8 different variations for the surprise horse of both matte and glossy. So now that is all I have for my surprise horse speculation video. We'll find out what the surprise horse actually is on Friday, July 22nd, the first day of BreyerFest. I will actually be there at BreyerFest Friday morning, and I also have a special run time. That's one of the first times. So I will probably find out what the special run is pretty early on. I will make sure to take pictures of either the special run horse that I get, or if I see someone else with it, I'll make sure to take a picture of it and post it to both my Instagram and my Facebook page. If you aren't following me on those already, the links are in the description. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and comment down below what you think the surprise horse is going to be. It doesn't have to be any of the horses that I already ruled out or didn't think was very likely. It could be whatever you think it's going to be, because you never know what Breyer's going to do. Alright guys, I hope you have an awesome day, and see you in the next video, and hopefully at BreyerFest too if you're going.